Hey everybody, welcome to episode 74 of Average Guy Opinions. Jesus, that's a good start, but I don't care. We don't edit these, do we? The people that are watching these don't care. I don't care. I'm just glad you're here. Episode 74, Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. As you can see, it's a little dark. It's overcast. The sun is going down. It's snowing lightly here in Colorado, or at least in my part of Colorado, on Wheat Ridge. And as the sun goes down on this day, the sun is also set on an important life, in my opinion. A guy I really liked, an actor I really cared for and enjoyed, Yaphet Kotto. I don't know if you all know who he is, but you probably will when I talk about him. His big splash into the acting fame was in Alien. He was the black guy in Alien. He also was in a kind of culty film with Robert De Niro called Midnight Run, which I love, and he was also in The Running Man. But my favorite thing that he was in was his. He played Captain Al Giardello on on Homicide-Life in the Street. I actually have the book. I should have brought it with me, so I show it to you. The book is thick. It was done by David Simon, and they based the entire series on the stories in this book. He did just a little background. David Simon kind of followed around Baltimore cops for a year or two, and back in the mid to late 80s, and then in the late 80s I believe he got this book done, and then by 91, 92, something like that, I think Homicide-Life on the Street had been adapted from a book to becoming a screenplay for this show. My favorite, I think, and maybe I'm biased, maybe it just hit me at the right time, but for me it's the best cop show ever made. It was perfectly gritty. It was very 90s. There's a little bit of jolty camera, which is kind of trendy back then. It's directed by Barry Levinson. It's all done in Baltimore because Barry Levinson's a big Baltimore guy. If you don't know Barry Levinson, Rain Man. That's probably all I need to tell you, but he's also done other movies. But Tin Men, I believe Barry Levinson did too. There was always a Baltimore basis in Barry Levinson films, and so the whole series was done in Baltimore. Just a great show. Even from the very beginning, even the early episodes were really good. And so Yaphet Kotto played out Lieutenant Al Giardello and was amongst a really good cast. Andre Braugher was obviously the cornerstone of the acting crew in that show. He was just an amazing actor and just did a great job. And he was surrounded by people that would go on to further fame, like Melissa Leo, who ended up getting an Oscar later. And there were even people that had little parts that you didn't know where they were going to go. It's fun watching these later, like 20 years later, 25 years later, after the show was in its heyday, and seeing people that were on the show that are now huge names, household names. Steve Buscemi was on it. Steve Buscemi says nigger on the show because he's a fucking racist, and Andre Braugher is pounding him in the box, as they call it, in the interrogation room, and he just starts getting upset and proving his showing his true colors, and he snaps and gets racist with Andre Braugher, and J.K. Simmons, another Oscar winner, is also in it, and he plays a white nationalist leader too. Robin Williams was in an amazing episode where his wife gets shot because they're tourists. It's Robin Williams and his wife and his two kids, and they take a wrong turn. Next thing you know, they're in whatever part of Baltimore is bad. I think it's North or East Baltimore, and these guys rob them and then just blow his wife away, and it's a very powerful episode. And Jake Gyllenhaal plays the young boy, plays Robin Williams' son. He's like 10 or 12 years old. This is before anyone knew who the hell Jake Gyllenhaal was, so that was kind of cool. Trying to think, there are probably other actors I could name that came out of that show, and I don't want to make this all about just Homicide-Life on the Street, but this is there. Yaphet Kotto, I think, was a really good actor. He covered, like I said, the 80s were, the 79 through 88. Those 10 years were good to him, but I think he really made his meat and potatoes on Homicide. I also have some other things that kind of connect me to Yaphet Kotto, which is kind of cool. When I worked at the Tivoli 12, the multiplex here in Denver, I worked there from 87 to 93 while I went to college, right across the street at Metro State, which was great and very convenient. And I met a lot of crazy and cool people. I actually, this is a little sidebar, a lot of Denver Broncos used to come in there because it was a very hot night spot back then. It was the most popular theater in the state for I think like 5 years because it was like 12 theaters. We only had about 1,300 seats, but that was kind of the trend back then, to have smaller theaters, but a bunch of them. And lots of Broncos would come in from those late 80s teams like Vance Johnson, Clarence Kay, and Steve Sewell, who was a running back, and had a decent career with the Broncos. And I actually work with the guy. He is like our college prep guy, and he's just super nice. And I think he's a few years older than me. He's probably in his late 50s, and still looks like he could play. He's just a stud. I mean, dude is taking care of himself, and such a very, very nice, intelligent man. I just love him. But I had to just name drop a little bit. But I'm co-workers with Steve Sewell, so that's kind of cool. So back to Yaphet Kotto and his Denver ties, which I was looking for on Wikipedia, and I couldn't find anything about it. He was married twice, had 3 kids with each of his wives, one in the 60s and one in the 70s, essentially. And so when I was working at Tivoli 12, I worked with his daughter. Her name is Sharada. It's Sarada, but she pronounced it at the time Sharada with like there's an H in it. Sort of like Sade, I guess. Sade somehow comes to Sade, but be that as it may. She was very nice, very pretty, a few years younger than me, and I said, I saw her, what her last name was. I go, "You related to him?" She's like, "Yeah, he's my dad." I was like, she didn't seem too pleased that he was her father, so who knows how that relationship went. But I was just like, "Oh man, do you think he'll ever come here? I'd love to talk to him. I'm at the movie theater and he's in movies." And she's like, I don't think that's going to happen. But he did have some Denver ties because a big thing he also did is back in the 80s, I want to say 88, we had a district attorney here. His name was Norm Early, and just looked like, honestly, a precursor to Obama. Just the, super intelligent, super good looking, always well dressed, always articulate, just the perfect district attorney who was going to move his way up to probably governor someday. And he was challenging, I think, Federico Pena in the 1988 mayoral election here in Denver. I could be wrong about that, but that sounds right because I remember driving by Spear and Colfax, and Yaphet Kotto's got a sign, a Norm Early sign. He's like, "Yeah, woo!" I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Maybe I'll vote for him. I don't know. I don't remember who I voted for. It's been so damn long. Well, actually, I probably didn't vote in that election. I wasn't. It doesn't matter. It's not important. But yeah, so it's kind of a loss for me. I mean, I'm not going to cry about it or anything. I don't get that emotional over people dying. It's going to happen every day. But he had one of those actors I kind of felt connected to just because I kind of worked with his daughter briefly, and he really just brought a subsistence to roles. A subsistence. That's not what I meant. A substance to roles that I really enjoyed. I mean, he really just seemed to play his ass off when he had a role, even when he was like the kind of the anti-comedy element in Midnight Run. He was great and hilarious at the same time, just this frustrated FBI agent that just can't seem to get what he wants, and De Niro is always a step ahead of him, and it was just frustrating. And at the end, he ends up teaming up with De Niro, and it's like, all right, we're on the same page. We're after the same guy. Like I said, back to Homicide. Also, I loved his character in Homicide because Al Girardello. This is the least Italian-looking guy I can imagine. He's just a big, dark, black man. And with that name, I don't know if Kotto could be usually Kotto, if it's Italian, is with a C and not a K. So I don't know his roots. I couldn't find out much about him on Wikipedia either. But you see the name like Yaphet Kotto, you think African or maybe Caribbean. But he apparently at least knew Italian because he spoke it really well. And in his role in the show on Homicide, he was like half Italian, obviously the name Girardello. And he would like he played in Italian so well you believed it. He'd just come up, say some, I don't even know any Italian words. That's how sad of an Italian I am. But just, hey, yeah. And then it was just a great show. And a little sad, but he lived a nice, successful, long life. So here's to you, Yaphet Kotto. Life over at 81. ended in the Philippines. I hope it was a good one. I can't imagine that it wasn't. It seemed like you had a zest for life and a zest for acting. And you captured my heart and my mind, so thank you. See you guys next time. Peace.